All right, here we go, everyone. It's episode 47 of Beers in the Lot. On this episode, we were talking about the Tampa and Montreal series in the final. We got into a little discourse about officiating, and we also talked about the Seattle Kraken and a couple rumors about contracts for the Caps. So let's get to it. Here we go.
Gratuitous poor Cam over here. What are you drinking tonight, Daniel?
It was hot as shit out today. And I was like...
As you're wearing a hoodie.
I was like, yeah. Well, it's in my basement. You know, I got that shit cranked. I decided I wanted a Hefeweizen tonight. So
Okay.
I went out to the beer store. I got 1623 Brewing Company Hefeweizen. They're from Eldersburg, Maryland. And I couldn't wait. I had one before the pod, and it was pretty good. Definitely recommend it. What are you drinking over there, John?
So I have a Tropic Cream, which is a sour ale brewed with pineapple and vanilla. And it is brewed from True Respite Brewing Company out of Deerwood, Maryland. So sour kick continues, and summer theme. It's like kind of a hippie looking can. I'm all about it. What about you, Riggs?
Is it as good as it sounds?
Yeah, it's pretty good so far.
So, following the tropical theme, I have from Flying Dog Tropical Bitch, which is the pineapple lava tangerine version of Raging Bitch. So, yeah.
Damn it. That's back? Oh, I gotta get some.
It's been back for a little bit. I've actually had these couple in the fridge for a little while. I just started drinking them this weekend. So, yeah. Good
Special
stuff.
occasion, right?
Yeah. And last but not least, what do you have, AA Ron?
Well, in keeping with the tropical theme, I have a beer straight out of the Rockies, a Coors Light.
John Denver was full of shit.
But the mountains are blue. That's all you need to know.
Just go get some pineapple and start eating it while you're drinking it.
There we go. Perfect.
I've seen people, they'll take lime or lemon slices and drop them into Coors Lights. I've seen that before.
Huh.
So it could be
Why
tropical.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
So Tampa didn't sweep. Unreal.
It kind of. I got the feeling after the first it was just going to head that way. Like somehow you just got this vibe that Montreal was going to do something to pull it out. And they did.
Yep. And they did. Big performance from Josh Anderson to keep him in that series, that's for sure. Great game for him. Did you guys see the clip of there was a guy getting interviewed outside the Bell Center, and he was saying, yeah, I think I called it before the game. I said Josh Anderson's going to get 2. This was like a few seconds before he got his overtime winner. And he said, I said Josh Anderson's going to get 2, so I think he's going to get the winner. And then like the crowd erupts behind him, and he turns around. He's like, I saw it. It's going nuts. It's pretty cool, actually.
Awesome.
I wonder how many Molsons he had. Well, there was I saw some stuff. It's kind of funny, like on Penguin Twitter, like someone was saying something like the Penguins need a guy like Josh Anderson, and someone was like, yeah, Getzel is totally replaceable. I'm like, Getzel had like 40 some points in the regular season, and Josh Anderson had like 16, something like that. And even in the playoffs, I don't think Anderson he's lighting the world on fire. It's really Suzuki. I mean, and Cole for the most part. They're not. I mean,
Cole
Josh Anderson
Caulfield played a part in that overtime winner.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
been a factor.
They're winning games because they're not losing them, basically. Like when they right, like Carey Price had a bad game in game 3, but then he turned it around in game 4, was all world again. Vasilevsky let in like a stinker from the blue line on one occasion in game 4. Like
That Ramanov
it's
goal,
just-
yeah.
yeah, I mean that can't go in. Like, come on, man. I don't care about
Yeah, good look at it,
traffic
too.
and all that stuff. Like, yeah, come on. That can't go in. So Like,
well, they pointed out on the broadcast too that Stamkos and Point were the puck went between the two of them. I think it was Point. Went between Stamkos and somebody else. I think it was Point. But on the other end, they were showing how Habs were laying down in front of shots to block it, but then Stamkos had plenty of opportunity to do that for the Romanov shot and didn't. And maybe it's the hey, we've got the series locked up. We don't need to be that aggressive a shot blocking. Who knows? But yeah, that shot, it made it straight through. Like Vasi should have had it.
Yeah, that can't go in, man. So like the way I look at it is Montreal doesn't, especially right now down 3-1, like they didn't win that game as much as they didn't lose it. And
the only thing too that was kind of exciting was that 4-minute power play at the very end with Shea Weber. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's a high stick. I mean, but like that, unfortunately, that's like one of the 2 calls you're probably going to get in like an overtime or super late, where if you slash and break a stick or you high stick somebody and also cut his face. Those are like the 2 penalties and delay a game.
Yep.
You're going to get those called because they're obvious, and they shut the door. And all throughout the playoffs, Montreal's power play or penalty kill, has been lights out. And then Tampa, I said it in our group text, like Tampa's power play has been their bread and butter. So let's see who's gonna, at least to start overtime, who's gonna assert their will, if you will. But yeah. And that Tampa power play too looked horrible.
Yeah, it was not good.
It was
Definitely
brutal.
was not. Didn't look like the power play that they were talking up as being one of the best. But the stat that they dumped on the broadcast was that the Montreal penalty kill is the best penalty kill since the 2010 Kings or something like that. Like
I believe
there hasn't been a penalty kill in the playoffs as good as that yet.
Yeah.
Or since. Like just unreal good.
I think like when I'm watching them, and this is just anecdotal, right? I don't look at any film over and over again. It's just what I remember from watching the game. And on their power play chances last game, there wasn't a lot of movement of players and the puck. Like they were moving the puck around, but players weren't doing switches on the wall and doing high-low switches when they would get the puck down low. Like they weren't doing a lot of that stuff that they normally do. They weren't skating a lot. They had the puck and they were moving it around, it seemed like, but they weren't, they say it on TV all the time. They weren't dynamic. I hate that phrase, but like they they weren't, they had the puck moving. They didn't have the people moving at the same time. And I think when you're static like that, a really good defensive team like Montreal with a really good goaltender, it makes it easy for them.
Well, especially the guys Montreal has out too on their penalty kill. They have like Byron and Weber and Petrie and Edmondson. All those guys can make something happen, and they're smart players. Like we kind of harass like a lot of the Montreal guys because they're not scoring goals, but they do stop a ton of chances and prevent a lot of the easy stuff. And then when there is a breakdown, Carey Price is there. So you are going to have to move around. I think that's what Vegas kind of had to some extent. Their power play got super stale very fast against that team. And I would say Toronto too, to some extent. I mean, in the first round, they got really cold on the power play. And also Montreal tries not to give you a ton.
And Montreal can burn you on shorties too. Like they're really good at capitalizing on shorthanded chances. So
it's like a men's league power play. I mean, power kill. Yeah.
Power
it's
kill.
Better when you have, it's better when you have 4 guys on the ice.
So, John, you kind of talked a little bit about, officiating in the playoffs and how, maybe when it gets in the later stages of games and OT, like, that a high stick that causes an injury is going to get called or delay a game because it's very clear and cut and dry. But there's been a lot of like complaining about officiating standards throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. And in another professional sports league.
Oh no. I know exactly where you're going.
We're going there.
I sent this on our group text.
Are you gonna get him started again?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm definitely sparking this one. Yeah. So in the NBA, I think it's who is it? Is it Houston?
It was
or
the Houston Rockets. It was the Houston Rockets.
So apparently, and I'm using air quotes. They audited. They audited. I don't know. So many.
The 2018
calls,
playoffs,
right? So many calls that went against them or something. I forget what the story was. John sent it, but they're basically saying that the league gave the series to the Warriors, to Golden State. I don't remember what the other team was, but basically gave them the series because they missed 81 calls that they found out through this, again, air quotes, audit that they did.
And so
So
I read a little more. Yeah, I read a little more of it. It was an article from Zach Lowe and Rachel Nichols on ESPN.com. So apparently the Rockets went back to 2018, mind you. So it's not spilled milk or anything. And they were talking about the Warriors. So out of the 81 potential calls they could have called, they tabulated it 18.6 points, which would have been the difference in the game or whatever. And then I'm not going to cruise to find like the total, deficit they lost by, because they clearly lost, so it doesn't matter. But oh my God, talk about some baby stuff. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's seriously, this is like if someone brought up in the Leafs organization the Gretzky high stick against Doug Gilmour. I was like, oh, well, Gretzky needs to be kicked out because he drew blood, and Gilmour would have been fine, and we would have scored, and it would have been over. And that would have been Montreal and Toronto in the Cup Final. Like, no, like, stop. I'm willing to bet I'm half tempted to go back and look how many air balls were in that game from Houston, too, and find out the total number of points on that. Like, that is just, right? Is that petty? Is it just me thinking this? Like, you're going to go back and audit the
Absolutely.
Oh, that's terrible. That's a complete joke.
Like, who's
That
been
is
sitting
so
there
bad.
stewing for like 3 years and was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to audit this.
You know what? The only
I'm
thing
going to see how many fouls were missed.
it could have been someone.
They're going to hear about this.
The only thing I could think of, it could have been like
Twitter's going to hear about this.
some advanced, maybe some advanced stat guy in Houston's organization during the pandemic. They're like, you guys need to find projects to keep your paychecks going. He's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and look at blown opportunities because we can quantify those. It's like, oh, uncle, and I'm not an NBA fan. I'm not I played hockey and soccer. I'm not a basketball guy. Clearly, I'm also 5'1". You think I'm stepping on the court? But like, if this doesn't like, hearing this, subtract the fact that I respect those guys as athletes. They're gifted. They're talented. I do like in the Summer Olympics, we go and just run train on everyone in the Olympics. It's cool. We get gold medals. It's awesome. But the fact that like there's an organization that's like, it's one thing if it was someone who's an independent advanced stat guy who wanted to go back and quantify this, or like even someone who's affiliated, like even if it was an internal report, let's say within like the NBA for their own referees, like, hey, like we need to tighten up this and that during the playoffs or even regular season. But someone within their own organization like sent this audit, which is even more hilarious that they use the word audit, is submitting this to the NBA. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what is the world coming to?
So we know that multiple teams and multiple NHL coaches have publicly complained about Stanley Cup playoff officiating this playoffs. Now that Houston Rockets report comes out and the NBA report comes out, do you think that any NHL clubs or even the league itself might go back and look at and do an audit?
John Tortorella will.
Well, he's out of a job, so he's got time right now, right? Like,
yeah.
Aw. Well, so all right. So first of all, I just want to say it's been a very tough year for NHL officiating. I'm talking about the Tim Peel incident. Obviously, that's like
oh yeah,
number one because that happened super early in the season, right? Like that was like week 2 or 3 of the NHL season, something like that. It was early, and then
yeah.
you had somewhat. I think the fact that people criticize the NFL or the NHL, actually all officials to some extent. Granted, there are blown calls in all sports, like MLB, NFL, NBA, MLS, European soccer. It happens all throughout the world. It's the way it works, and it's at all levels. It's men's league, it's youth leagues, name it, it happens. But if you start going back and just like nitpicking little random events, it just it gets too crazy. And especially NHL where like so if you're gonna say like, oh, this is actually a tripping penalty by definition because you called it earlier in the game, same thing, yada yada. How can you go back and even say a team's gonna score on a power play? Who's even gonna say the other team didn't get a shorty on you during that power play? You can't like really kind of bring that stat up. Now NBA to some extent because you can do averages of free throws and whatnot. Like there's a percentage I'm sure you can kind of calculate. But still, like how how do you even
That's a
they have a
dangerous
totally free chance
thing.
on the basket and some guys are like 10%. I know. It's Pandora's box.
That's a dangerous thing to start going down the road in any sport, right? I mean, you just said like there's no guarantee that you're going to score on a power play. You know, I in some cases you might be even less less you might have less probability depending on, if your
Yeah.
if
we,
your power
we
play
talked
is
about it
any
a minute
good or
ago.
not,
Like in men's
right?
league,
Yeah.
if we get a penalty in men's league, then it's the power kill. Like you have an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, we want the 4 skaters on the ice.
Mhm.
We decline the penalty.
Right.
Let them have 5. We'll take the 4. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and then the other thing too with it's like, I respect a lot of the stuff the NBA does because it kind of let their players have a voice. They kind of let them have a lot of decisions and how the leagues ran. And the players in that league have a ton of power, a lot like MLB. NHL, it's a little different. But like after this, I mean, wow, like babies. That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
babies.
I think it's
I
just an absolute farce that they allowed this to be public. Like you said, if this was done internally, if this
Yeah.
was a team bringing some data to the NBA and saying, "Hey, we noticed this. This is kind of a big deal to us. Can we look at this?" This should not be a public thing. This is an organization just openly complaining about something that happened about them losing 3 years ago. Like come on.
Well, and I'll take it kind of one step further now that sports gambling is legal in more and more states every year. How do you, if you're the NBA, how are you trying to go out and get new sponsors for sports betting in certain cities or states or getting partnerships when, a betting, a casino or a app, affiliation or something can literally go, oh, well, we can quantify the fact that your officials blow, 20% of the games a year on a deficit of 12.7 points, something like that, where you have a tangible number. Like, how do you as a league then negotiate? Do you go to completely video review? Do you take the human element out? I mean, and
That's the whole when are robo umpires thing
Yeah.
coming to baseball question. Like it's all of that
Yeah.
because
Oh,
you-
Jesus.
they already have like the TrackMan and all that stuff and the pitch tracks or
Yep.
whatever it was called back in the day that it
Mhm.
has all the telemetry on where that ball is crossing the plate,
Yeah.
right? Like, and the NHL has been experimenting with chips and pucks that tracks puck movement and all that kind of stuff, and supposedly they could tell if it was in the net or not, fully, and that kind of thing. Like there's already some of that going on, but there's still all these rules, like we already brought up stick infractions, right? Somebody has to see that, like somebody has
Right.
to see the stick physically come to an area that's illegal and that action take place, right? And then make the decision, is that a call or not? And there's all kinds of stuff that goes into that, right? Like depending on game situation, score situation, you know, is it
Yep.
OT in playoffs?
I like the meme you
Is
sent
it-
to our thing.
Oh, yeah.
the meme with the books. It's like the rule book in the regular season, and it's this massive novel with 1 million pages.
Yeah.
And then in the playoffs, it's like a small little binder, and then in OT, it's just a single page.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are the
No,
rules.
no, it's true. It's definitely true. Like you don't want to be calling that ticky tacky stuff when it's back and forth. The game is like flowing. There's that human element to it where you don't want to be blowing the whistle every 2 minutes. Like let the guys get chippy a little bit. This guy, takes a little stick. That guy takes a little stick. Yeah, whatever. Let them go. They're good.
If it doesn't affect the outcome of the game, then is it really
Exactly.
a penalty?
I think
the gray areas really show in the playoffs.
I think it actually helps the game.
Yeah.
In some ways.
It's more exciting. I mean, it's more
Yeah,
exciting.
it's
Like
definitely more
let
exciting.
them go back and forth.
And the language that the league has always used, and not even just the NHL, like at all levels of hockey, the language that's always used is that the on ice officials should be like facilitating the game more than they're calling it, right? They should be helping move it along, making sure that there is some sort of fair standard on ice, right? And that things that are happening aren't negatively impacting one team more than the other, right? And I'm fine with all that. I think that's good. I think what ends up happening now is you have this situation like over in the NBA where people are starting to, like John mentioned, look at it more analytically and trying to put real hard data against the calls and their potential impact on games. And that can be dangerous because now what we're saying is we don't accept the human element anymore, right? Like going back to the robo umpire thing. We don't accept the human element anymore. We don't accept that this official might call a situation one way and this one might call it a different way. Still, it's still a fair game. It's just that's the way it went, and one team might think it's worse than the other or whatever. But I think that's dangerous. I think we all of us that are participating in the games and the sports, like we still need to operate under that trust that there is a human element to it, and that's the way things are going to be. Things are going to seem unfair sometimes, and that's not what is actually happening. It's just mistakes are made sometimes, or a guy's view is obstructed and he couldn't see the stick hit the guy in the chin. There's all kinds of stuff that can go on. Right. Like there's all this stuff that can go on. So, we just have to accept the human element and move on.
Yep.
Right. And I actually think that when NHL coaches and orgs are complaining about missed calls or whatever for the playoffs, I don't think that they actually, like, of course, they don't actually expect that any call is going to be reversed or anything like that. And you couldn't even do that in the game. But they want to call attention to it that they don't think that they're getting calls the same as other teams. So they want it to change going forward. Right. Whereas this Rockets org is they're just bitching. They're just there is no like, what do they possibly expect is going to come from this? Like the only thing that they could possibly expect is this discourse, this discussion, like Eric's saying, is that we're not accepting the human element that played a part in the result of that game. That's basically
a 2018 championship, Aaron. Well, that's what they want.
Why didn't they talk about it in 2018?
Because they didn't have Jonah Hill combing the books.
Yeah, that's right. Jonah Hill, Moneyball. Him and Brad Pitt. Moneyball. How can you not be romantic about missed calls in basketball, right? But the other thing, so like I remember very vividly, and I don't remember the exact verbiage, but Barry Trotz called attention to the fact that Bergeron, a league vet, was somehow cheating a little bit on his faceoffs against Barzal, and I forget who the other center he was talking about. And he just said, "We have very wonderful officials in our league, and I'm sure they're very well aware of the issue." Blah blah blah. Essentially, kind of, yeah, kind of exactly. Danny just did it, but in a very polite way of stroking their ego to make sure that they're not only going to look for it, but kind of key in on it a little bit. Versus Bruce Cassidy in the round 1, he came out, or round 2, I think, he just came out and just like bashed the officials completely. He got like a massive fine because of it too. Barry Trotz was complimentary and didn't get a fine at all. But I mean, I can't think outside of like how many refs do you ever see like getting yelled at by like team officials? Just the one where what's his face yelled, "Go have another donut," right? That's the only one I can think of.
Koharski.
You know what I'm talking about?
Koharski.
Koharski, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Go have another donut. That's the only time I ever remember something like that. I know it happens way more in MLB because those guys get a little.
No, man, it happens
more
all the time.
Animated with the umpires.
Well, the coaches yell at them all the time.
Right, it happens all the time on the ice.
Like, yeah, exactly.
You just don't hear it, but you could see
They're trying to get that next call.
You could see it on when you're watching the TV broadcast.
Oh yeah,
they're constantly. But there's also a certain amount of just like constant communication too, which is something that I'm always big on. Is like everybody that's involved, players, coaches, officials, like everybody needs to be communicating with each other, whether it's positive or negative, to manage the game and keep it moving. And like, let's make sure everybody understands what we're doing here and all that kind of stuff. So that's always, for me, the most important piece is, if a coach or a player has a concern that they're going to express however they're going to express it, sometimes it's really negative. Like, they should be able to do that. And then the official should just be like, this is what I saw. This is what I called. That's it. Like, you said your piece. I said my piece. We're moving on here. We're playing the game now. Like, it should just be this constant flow of communication like that. And maybe like, if maybe they say like, I didn't see it, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I didn't see it. I think that happens a lot too.
The one thing too with the whole Rockets thing, going through the article, the one statement at the very end that is like the most glaring, and I kind of like respect the NHL because the NHL puts the most experienced guys with the most proven track record in terms of accuracy, game management, all that, usually in their playoff formats. Those are the guys who consistently move on and they regrade you every round. They don't, you don't get a free pass. So it says, the reason we are in this situation, the memo says, is the efforts made to improve the referees have been too slow. I can't speak to that. Obviously, I'm not an NBA guy. Not extensive enough and have been held back by entrenched referees who are resisting reform. That's every sport. That's not basketball like specific, I'm sure. The Rockets recommended that referee assignments in the postseason should be determined exclusively by call accuracy without regard to experience level. Now, I do agree with the last statement. However, if the NBA is not doing that already, shame on them, and shame on the owners and players for not doing something. They got to do memos 3 years after the fact that they're losing championships and playoff games.
Right. I mean,
so like,
yeah, you want your best referees in the playoffs.
Being done
obviously.
That way. Yeah. I don't care that much about it, other than I just think they're babies. I just laugh about it. Also, the Rockets organization, I don't follow them, but I know they had like some superstars, and Harden's now, where's he now? He's one of the New York teams. Like, so maybe that's part of it. Like, just total spilled milk. I don't know. I know. I like the pictures. He was all fat when he was in Houston, and then he got to New York, and like 2 days later, he's slim and trim. Like, shooting around, he just gained all that weight just for training camp in Houston. He went on the Kenny Powers diet.
All right, finish up with this NBA talk. I'm gonna go get another beer.
It's done. Fucking jokers. I want to go back and look at how many missed travels were in that game.
Yeah, travel is apparently one that gets missed all the time. Like, I don't keep up and watch the sport or anything, but man, I've seen videos of missed travel calls, and they are insane. Guys just walking down the court.
You ever see LeBron
James?
He's a running back. LeBron James is a running back.
Yep.
Anyone see any good movies lately?
No. Saw Boss Baby 2, so no.
I saw Jaws the other week.
Yeah, I saw Jaws. You guys see the shit about Kraken hired 2 assistant coaches? So they got Dave Haxel has a long track record of working in a developmental process when he was with North Dakota. They got Jay Leach and Paul McFarland worked with OHL teams and AHL teams. Predominantly, all those roles are developmental. I think they're going to go super young and try and, at least from everything that's coming out report-wise, they're going to try and go super young and develop the team. So not like Vegas did, where Vegas tried to be a little more competitive off the hop, but also Vegas was able to kind of find gems, if you will, in organizations that other teams undervalued. And also, I think Vegas caught a lot of teams sleeping where they were like, if you want us to take this guy, we want so-and-so in a pick. They were able to fleece a few teams, Florida being one of them. They got Marchessault and Riley Smith. But I think Seattle, too, by going younger, more, if you will, unproven talent, that's going to maintain cap flexibility for them for a few years. You kind of look at Vegas. I mean, they're not in a world of hurt, but Vegas is going to have to do some gymnastics this offseason and kind of figure out what's going to happen because they're exempt from the what are we calling it? Expansion draft, which I'm sure they're kind of bent about at this point. Yeah, Yeah.
Which is when?
So I believe that's in like 15 days. I think actually like July's I want to say like in the next 2 weeks, teams have to submit a list of protected and non-protected. And I think the deadline for players waiving their no move to be on that list is very fast approaching. So that'll be interesting to see like what teams kind of put guys up for grabs. Especially because there's a lot of guys that do have either partial or, full no move. You would think at some point those go off the table, but they kind of don't. That's also the talk around Ovechkin right now, because he's technically an unrestricted free agent. They've kind of said it a few times that he'll probably resign after the expansion draft, just so the Caps don't take up a roster spot. So
yeah, they can keep Oshie that way
if they want to keep him, though.
Why wouldn't you?
I don't know.
He's a great American hockey player.
He is a great American hockey player.
One of their most consistent players. That's the prevailing.
I mean, I think one
rumor is that
I don't think he wants to go anywhere.
They'll let Ovi go unrestricted, and then he won't sign anywhere. And then the day after, they already have the contract written up. All it needs is signatures.
It's in a drawer. Yeah, it's sitting
in
the
drawer. He's
not
going anywhere.
He just needs to sign it now. I think if I had to guess, I think Tyler Johnson from Tampa. I see him. They're going to put him up in the expansion draft. He played his junior hockey in Seattle. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes there. Plus, also, he's had a really good finals. I mean, he's had kind of a diminished role the last couple of years because Tampa's so deep in general. So a guy like him could be pretty valuable. A little undersized, but I mean, it's today's NHL. You need guys like that because I do think they want to keep Point, Killorn, Palat. They want to keep those guys too. So goalies, totally unsure on goalies. Marc-Andre Fleury may be available. We'll see.
The expansion goalie.
That was my thinking last year when I made that Vegas bet. I was like, yeah, Flower will be gone. It'll totally be fine. Leonard's going to ride the crease, and Leonard unfortunately was hurt half the year. So is there a player like you guys want to see in Seattle though? Is there anyone like you would go like, yes, has to play in Seattle?
No.
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
No.
I mean, I think if you're the Caps, you probably want Kuznetsov gone. Maybe do something there to get him Seattle to take him. You think?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get away that easy on that contract. That contract, like, you'd have to package someone else or something with him in order for someone to take that contract off your hands. So, you'd be giving up a prospect or some sort of pick, or it'd be a package deal of current NHL players with him. So that they could unprotect him. Seattle's not going to take him because they're not going to take that contract right off the bat. I wouldn't think.
He's a deal sour, like Jack Johnson. Like, you wouldn't be able to get rid of a guy with a contract like that. Like, you just can't.
Right. Too rich.
You'd have to take the loss.
Well, I mean, but I don't see the Caps like. I mean, he was scratched.
There's a lot of rumors.
So why? I mean, why did they even want him?
There are a lot of rumors floating around right now that they've got deals in the works for him, and the old saying, "Where there's smoke, there's fire." So the more that's going on, the more that certain media types like Friedman and Saravelli and these guys are saying, "Hey, we're hearing more and more about Kuzi. I expect that he'll get dealt, but it's going to come at a cost to Washington. Like, they'll be on the sort of other side of that deal, right? Just to get rid of him in that contract." Because you got to move that money, you got to move that term, and you got to move that reputation. So that's tough. But you're probably better off.
Do you think maybe he'd just bag it all? Do you think he'd bag it all and go like, "I'm going back to the KHL"?
I don't think so.
As much money as he's making, it'd be hard for him to say, "I'm out."
Yeah, and I just don't. He's not like some of the other Russians where they say, like, "I'm going to finish my career in Russia." Ovechkin said it. Oh no, Backstrom said it about
it's true.
Sweden the other day, but I think Ovechkin said it before. Like, he's going to go back and finish up with Dynamo. Backstrom actually said it the other day. Like, after his extension's done, he's going to go back and play in Sweden and then retire there. So that's another thing where, like, okay, Backstrom signed, and then okay, Ovechkin's going to sign. They'll finish at the same time, and then they'll both head back overseas. So that's the stuff that's going on.
Well, I think those guys that'll kind of be like that Jaromir Jagr thing. He'll play 1 year in like the Czech, Division 1 league just to kind of. Well, Ovechkin could probably play a few years. Backstrom just kind of. He's very quiet. He kind of and all those Swedish guys, they like kind of just not vanishing, but they kind of like flying under the radar. They like going back, and
Backstrom started this like investment financial company in Sweden. Yeah, I forget what it's called. I was just reading about this the other day. I saw it. I think it was on Twitter or something. Somebody mentioned it, or somebody wrote something about it. But like, he was talking about his future, and that's where he mentions about when this extension's done, I'm going to Sweden and I'm going to retire there. And then this thing says that he started like some sort of like investment firm or something in Sweden. I don't know how it works over there, but yeah, so he's already
called Prestige Worldwide.
Yeah.
Worldwide. Yeah.
Investors, you?
Question mark?
Yeah, I know. That'd be great. He's on a boat.
Oh no.
Investors.
But
he sits everyone down at his final dinner at Chili's. That's a PowerPoint on.
All right, that'll do it. Thanks for listening, everybody. As always, we say it every week, but one day you'll hear it and you'll do it. Join us on Discord at beersinthelaw.com/Discord. I promise it's not just for Fortnite players. Download the app on your phone and then hit beersinthelaw.com/Discord and you can jump in and join the conversation. We're bantering in there all the time, and if you want more memes and stuff, then that's the place.
Okay. Have a good one, everybody. We'll catch you next episode. Thanks again for listening.